Welcome to Random Offense, where we explore the overlap between sports, culture, sometimes even politics. We dare to do that. I am joined by the preeminent sports media critic, the best sports media reporter in all the land, that is Ryan Glassbeagle of Front Office Sports. And usually around this time, I try to deliver a little TV style monologue, but Ryan and I have such a rapport, and I know we are so loquacious that let's just start bringing them on. Let's get into the
Let's
topics.
go.
Yeah, because we have a big topic here, Ryan. We have
Yes.
the biggest news story in America, an epidemic, if you will, of neon green dildos being thrown at WNBA games, and it cannot be stopped, Ryan. I mean, recently, I think we are on incident number 7 of this crazy thing. Oh, I forgot to do the whole thing. One second. You guys can ask questions. I forgot to. I'm overly excited to talk about this green dildo topic. You guys can ask questions via the Zoom. Yada yada yada. You know. Okay, so the latest example occurred on August 7th, 2025, during a game between the Chicago Sky and the Atlanta Dream at Wintrust Arena in Chicago. 2 additional sex toys were thrown onto the court during the third and fourth quarters.
I
There
hate
are
to correct you. One was thrown on the court, one didn't make it to the court.
Oh, this is a very important correction.
Look, we're nothing if not peak journalists here,
Yes.
and we have to hold ourselves accountable to high
Oh,
standards. Go on.
humiliating for me to get that detail wrong. I'm glad you corrected me. I needed that correction. So, this is a crazy story. There's an aspect of mystery to it, and it would appear, Ryan, that there is reporting that suggests all of this is part of some sort of crypto meme coin pump scheme to garner attention. So while there's a reaction to it saying this is misogyny, this is sexism, this is people who hate women in sports, it would appear that maybe this is just a way to garner a bunch of attention towards cynical ends, and there's nothing personal about it. To give one more detail, and maybe we can throw up on the screen if Trace would help us out, there's betting on this right now. Apparently, I didn't know this. You can just bet out there on criminal behavior, poly market odds. There are poly market odds currently on whether this is going to happen again in future games. And I think the most famous incident might have been Sophie Cunningham, regarded as the most attractive player in the WNBA. She said on Twitter that this needs to stop, and it happened to her. She
She
got
got she got hit with one.
Yeah, and I guess when I'm setting up, and we can maybe even throw that up on the screen. We might have a video of that. I'm making Trace really hustle over here. If you have the Sophie Cunningham gets neon green dildo, I think she handled it wonderfully, by the way. It's not every day you say
Oh,
something
look
like
out.
that.
Something just came onto the floor.
Yep. And Kelsey Plum,
Got an object that
very
just
talented,
flew in.
multi-sport talent, just kicked it away like she could have been a soccer star. Cunningham then said that tweet didn't age well. And to set you up for this all, Ryan, I think that one is interesting because she said basically to stop, then she was targeted. And apparently what happened to her in a way wasn't personal, perhaps. It's just part of this whole scheme, and this is the easiest way to get attention. I'm saying a lot. What say you?
Well, you mentioned that it's an epidemic, so maybe we need to shut the league down for 3 weeks to stop the spread.
Maybe we need to shut up about it. We're part of the problem. If they're
Well,
trying to get
yeah.
attention through doing
It
this,
is
this is all,
it's
yeah.
a very 2025 story because I mean a week or two ago we never could have fathomed how much time and energy would get spent on this, and now all of a sudden it's leading the news. I mean, Front Office Sports is where I work has written several stories about it. Margaret Fleming talked to these like green dildo meme coin pumpers and I'd say that 5 times
Yeah,
fast,
I know, I
but
know.
it's really crazy because you can do this criminally mischievous thing and then use it to inflate the attention and therefore theoretical value of this currency that you just create out of thin air. I mean,
Yeah.
I know the crypto people are going to like come after me. I've never understood any of it. I especially don't understand how someone anyone. Could we just make like a House of Glass meme coin and then have it get pumped? Like, is that how does someone just make their own currency and then people decide how valuable it is? It's very strange.
Strange, and it has no intrinsic value. I know people would argue that Bitcoin does have an intrinsic value because of its scarcity. I don't want to get into all of that, but clearly a lot of this is just garnering attention, pump and dump. And it's interesting because on its face, initially it looks like this is an act of misogyny. Like Carrie, where they throw the red paint on her, some sort of 80s movie where these women are being bullied by these crass sexists. But instead, it's this other thing that's not necessarily better than that and might even be worse, where people have an understanding that you can game the attention economy by acting in a maladaptive, antisocial way, because that's shocking. And I know this story right here, there's an aspect where it's just funny on the face of it, but that part of it and that social trend, I don't think it's great. I'm not going to say it's not funny, but I think it's bad. And I've seen examples of it in a few different places. Trace, could you pull up the example of just some kid yelling at Charles Barkley and being a jerk? Because I think it's a good example of what I'm talking about here and what's going on in the culture. Let's
Guy
see.
with no championship rings. He sucked at basketball. 0 rings. He has 0 rings. You're Jordan's son. Imagine not winning an NBA championship.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what's happening. That guy doesn't hate Charles Barkley any more than these crypto meme pushers, pumpers, whatever we want to think of them. They might not even hate women or hate the WNBA. It's similar to where, I mean, the analogy I would make is if I took a dump in a church, not me, I don't want myself to be in this analogy. If somebody took a dump in a church on live stream, there would be this initial assumption that they hate Christianity. But actually, in this modern era, Ryan, it would be that this is the easy way to get attention because they're doing something sacrilegious, and that's why they're doing something antisocial. This seems to be another example of it. I'm not trying to stop this kind of thing, Ryan.
Well, there's another fascinating element that you sort of alluded to with the betting on Polymarket about like which color dildo will be thrown on the court next. Now, the Polymarket and Bet Online, which I believe are the two books that have been getting publicity for offering the odds, are offshore books and they're not illegal. But there is like a Polymarket competitor called Kalshi, which hasn't put these odds up, but does have a lot of like similar markets where they could be manipulated by somebody who is placing the bet or by a proxy. And so, what does it say that there are betting markets about which color dildo is going to get thrown on the court next when you can go into an arena and be the one who settles that market?
Is it too much to ask? I know sometimes the purview of these things aren't necessarily happening within the United States. Is it too much to ask that these markets not incentivize illegal behavior? Is it impossible? Can we do that without violating free speech to prevent betting markets that clearly incentivize somebody to do something illegal?
I don't know if you want these things getting like a regular. I mean, there is these markets are honestly in a regulation push and pull right now because Kalshi has tried. They are in all 50 states, and a number of regulators in states with legal gambling are trying to get it banned. So there is a question of that, although it's not necessarily are we allowing illegal markets up as these sports books and the states that accept taxes from them don't really want the competition. But I don't know. It's a very hard question. I'm glad I'm not the societal arbiter who has to decide that. Is this a good time to segue to a societal arbiter who people are kowtowing to?
I mean, I see what you're doing there. It's a clever segue. I'm wondering if I should do it and circle back, as the HR people say, or the bloodless corporate people say to other topics. If you want to do it, man, I'll play ball with you. I'll accept the segue. We might return to a WNBA topic, but let us talk NFL ESPN merger.
Mhm.
How the NFL is getting a 10% stake in ESPN. And I'm reading all these different headlines in these articles that this creates a bit of a challenge for Disney slash ESPN to placate Donald Trump, because Trump is a little bit pay for play. Trump is a little bit of where's the leverage here? And you need Trump's administration and the governing bodies and the regulators not to intervene and mess up a merger. So does that put ESPN and Disney in a position where they have to placate him? And then what are the implications? I set you up, go.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. And you'd like to think that there's a world where like the Justice Department operates under the parameters of, is this an illegal monopoly? No, okay, you guys can merge. But that isn't really the way that it works. The government, the federal administrations under the presidential branch reflect the president. And we just saw what happened with CBS and Skydance, and it was a long and painful process. CBS had to settle a lawsuit on behalf of 60 Minutes with President Trump. They canceled Stephen Colbert. They said it was because his show's losing a lot of money. It is losing a lot of money. It's not funny, but you still wonder, based on the timing, if maybe that was a concession that they were making so that the deal could go through. There might be sports deals that Paramount does in the future that with Trump-friendly proxies. So you don't know like where kind of the Trump impact begins and where the business ends or whatever. I don't know if I got that order of operations right, but
Yeah, but we understood your meaning, and I think in a weird way that almost creates more power or influence when it's unpredictable. If it was completely predictable and it's just, hey, I've got to do this and that in this formalized way that we don't tend to have in this country with our traditions, then maybe you check off those boxes and it's a done deal. But when it's, I don't know when the Justice Department's going to have a problem with me, and then maybe I have to do even more, I think in a way you see even more signaling.
yeah, and so the for this Disney and ESPN acquisition of NFL Network to go through, they are going to need President Trump's administration to sign off on it. And so you don't know what type of pound of flesh, if any, he's going to try and exact for it, but you can guess. And so, early this year, Disney settled, like CBS settled, a suit about George Stephanopoulos, longtime ABC News man with President Trump. And then this week, right after they announced this NFL deal, Disney settled a case with Gina Carano, who was fired as an actress on the Star Wars Mandalorian series. She was fired after she shared a meme basically comparing Republicans in 2021 to Jews during the Holocaust. Now, it's this kind of a clunky, dumb meme, a little bit.
Was it
Yeah.
Godwin's Law is the internet
Can
term?
you a
Yeah.
little bit understand like, yeah, it is a faux pas to be a conservative in this Hollywood 2021 post-COVID, during COVID, whatever atmosphere. I can understand how she would have felt shunned by her politics at that time. But she got fired for it, and she sued Disney with the help of Elon Musk, who promised to help fund any lawsuit over anybody who lost their job over posts on Twitter, now X. And all of a sudden, yesterday, it gets settled, and Disney settles basically with an apology to her and a
Hmm.
promise to hire her for future roles. And I gotta admit, like, I didn't see a world where a company like Disney and the way that they carried itself over the last decade plus whatever would have, you know, groveled like this.
I agree. And also, this might not be most germane to that particular topic, but I thought it was interesting that you alleged the picture of her when she got fired
Oh God.
looked far less glamorous than the picture of her in the Hollywood Reporter when she has won the suit and Disney is groveling. Trace, can we see an example? I just want to see if Ryan has seen things or if he's correct. I want to analyze it. This is very important to me. So, That's when she was fired. Wait, okay.
Yeah,
No,
that's when she was fired. Yes.
that's when she was fired. Okay. I think she
Uh-huh.
looks all right.
It wasn't terrible, but this is a more flat. I don't know. I hate doing this in public. I thought this was private, but I think that there was something to Hollywood Reporter using a more flattering
So
image of her when she won than when it appeared she had lost.
all these decisions are being made by AI anyway. It's just interesting on it. I mean, okay, so a lot of things. There's a lot of things going on with this. Trump obviously was president before, and there was none of this placation happening as far as I could see it, right? There were actually severe social penalties on anybody who was seen groveling or bending the knee to Trump, and it was scary to go along with him as opposed to backing the resistance. He was in 2016 in the first term, he was in office, but he wasn't in power. I feel like I feel like I'm tapping into my Colin Cowherd right there, Ryan. He was in office, but he wasn't in power. There's a difference between being in office and being in power. Now it appears as though he is in power, that he has like-minded people around him, that he's not getting impeached perpetually, that there's not this big Russia scandal, and Twitter isn't arrayed against him. And I think it's just a far different dynamic in this round two. And
He
yeah,
won by a lot more too, to be fair.
I think that's also a huge part of it. I think that's a great point by you. And so it appears that there's teeth, and you just see some of these corporate actors groveling, Tim Cook most recently, in a way that it wasn't the case before. And to be clear, in my ideal world, this wouldn't be how it goes, right? I,
Right. We're
I,
not like
yeah,
our acknowledgement that this is happening isn't an endorsement, and we would
yeah.
like people to understand that. Like we're trying to diagnose what the world is and not whether that's right or not.
Exactly. We're trying to just diagnose it and get a sense of what's happening. And it's complicated. It's tricky because there should be a rebalancing that's not about placating him. Gina Carano should not have been fired. I know that sounds like a big claim by me, somebody who just said her name, and as I said it, hopes to have pronounced it correctly because I know so little about her, because I never watched her in MMA and I never watched The Mandalorian. But I know that she should not have been fired. Why do I know that she should not have been fired? Because Lucasfilm literally admitted to it when they fired her, that it was about the posts on social media and not anything to do with The Mandalorian, which is crazy to me, Ryan. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how they go through these things. It's crazy to me that they wouldn't back then in 2021 have just found some BS excuse to fire her that wasn't her political beliefs while they indulged other people's political beliefs and kept them hired. I know Pedro Pascal on the other side has been an example of somebody's extremist rhetoric that has been indulged by that company. She shouldn't have lost her job. She should get acting roles, at least based on the idea that she got fired for something that had nothing to do with her acting. It just so happens that the mechanism by which we're arriving at all of that is something that doesn't feel like it's part of a first world country. Or the counter argument, Ryan, as I continue to monologue and pontificate, maybe it was always thus, but a lot of liberals didn't notice it because the people who were compelling corporations were people who agreed with them. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that was it was another thing where Sydney Sweeney is getting backlash for being a registered Republican, and it's a little bit like the backlash follows almost this old model of that's not allowed,
Mm.
and instead though there's this counter backlash, and American Eagle stock is pumping, and so it's just a different world. Like I never would have look, I could see the pendulum swinging back the other way, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't have ever conceived that it would go this far.
I mean, it's not like the prior world. It's not the mirror image of the prior world, of the social media world, where it felt as though you had to falsify your preferences in public life to a certain degree to not be regarded as a terrible person. You almost had to be in the closet at points as a normal person. You had to, at points, go, Well, I don't think the police are terrible, and I don't really think that we should like abolish them. And I actually think these riots are pretty bad, but I'm just going to keep my mouth shut about it because I want to keep my job. That was literally, I know people are going to say that wasn't true. No, that was what it was
Was.
like. That was completely what it was like. I don't think it's like that right now. I actually do think, in a weird way, right now feels like we have, to pick a term, a lot of diversity when it comes to political viewpoints that are aired publicly. I'm not saying it's a perfect world. I don't support the overall litigiousness of Donald Trump. I do think when he sues some of these broadcasters, the reason they settle is less to placate him and more of they're in the news department. They don't want to go to Discovery and reveal how they were really talking about these stories when these stories were happening. But yeah, I just think it's a more balanced world. And to appropriate the language of the people who used to be in cultural power, when you've been accustomed to privilege so long, equality feels like oppression, perhaps.
I mean, I still like what the Carano thing is just such a wild swing. To go from firing her over a meme to paying her money, apologizing, and promising to hire her again. Like it would have been one thing if they just settled and set like it was like okay, the sides like those issues resolved. They're hiring her for new roles.
Yeah, your new ESPN NFL Red Zone host, Gina Carano.
Um, that does remind me that people are like adamant that ESPN is going to ruin Red Zone, and that's like another thing that we haven't totally fleshed out is at least on like my Twitter and the For You feed, it seems like ESPN has developed a really bad brand with the like 45 and under male.
Mm.
And I don't like, social media is a funhouse mirror, and I don't know that you can take away that everybody feels like what your Twitter For You feed looks like. And I'm sure by the fact that I have like spend time looking at those tweets because they're interesting to my profession, maybe I get shown more of them. But ESPN's not going to ruin Red Zone channel. Like Scott Hansen is signed for several years. Now, I think there's going to be an ad creep in Red Zone. They started it
Yeah.
last year. It used to be 7 hours of commercial-free football begin right now, and he might do an ad read, but they wouldn't take a break for commercials. But that changed last year, and that's just going to creep and creep and creep, and then people are going to be very sad and remember what once was. But as far as like ESPN putting Stephen A. or Pat McAfee in there, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, and maybe ESPN has struck the wonder note. I don't know what metaphor I'm using here, but maybe they've made the play to save themselves and save themselves from irrelevance. That the two of the old guard of sports entertainment, ESPN, the NFL, they looked around. Roger Goodell, commissioner of the NFL, said, my competition, it's not the NBA, it's not the MLB, it's Google, it's Apple." And these two forces that looked at the playing field, as it were, and worried about the future, they joined together. Is it enough to save them, Ryan? Is ESPN, did this move, is this going to make them perpetual when it looked like they could be the sick
I
man of
It
Europe or whatever
it
in
doesn't
entertainment?
change that. This move doesn't change that much for them. I mean, it gets them the carriage fees of NFL Network and Red Zone, and then they're merging NFL Fantasy and ESPN, and they're paying the equivalent of $2.5 billion for that. And that sounds like a lot, but ESPN pays the NFL $2.7 billion every year for 25 games. So they're getting three extra games in this in net, and they're getting the carriage fees from NFL Network and the linear carriage fees for Red Zone. It's a very complex transaction. Like they own NFL Network now, they own the brand for Red Zone, and they can do like college football Red Zone now, but
Yeah.
they only own the linear like so cable and satellite distribution rights. They don't even own the right to distribute it on like YouTube TV or Hulu Live. It's convoluted, and I don't know how much anyone cares or understands it. But
There
um
are people who care. The understands it. That might be a little bit tougher right there. I think the main takeaway for people who don't want to get too deep into it is that they are joined in effect, that the ownership stake is an interesting merger, as it were, as opposed to being partners. There's something else right now. Blood brothers, Siamese cousins. I don't know what, but it's
Oh, I
something.
mean,
It's something more so.
here's the existential crisis ESPN faces, and it has very little to do with its brand or whether people like it, because they have a unbelievable collection of live sports events, and they're essential for people who are obsessed with the NFL, the SEC, the NBA, and now WWE.
Mhm.
But they were in 100 million homes 10 years ago. Now they're in fewer than 70 million homes. Each of those homes pays $10 a month times 12 months a year. And all of a sudden, that adds up to a substantial amount of money that they've lost in people who either cut the cord or their customers died off, and the youngs who replaced them never became bundle subscribers.
Yeah.
And so they're launching this over the top app where you get all of ESPN for $30 a month. And it remains to be seen, Ethan, how many people who don't have Comcast or YouTube TV or Direct TV want ESPN so bad that they're willing to pay $30 a month for it.
Yeah.
And that's an equation, like that's the question of how much danger is ESPN in, because we saw Comcast spin off their cable channels. We saw Warner Brothers Discovery spin off their cable channels. By all measures, it looks like these Warner Brothers Discovery channels and the Comcast ones that are getting spun off, they're getting spun off because Wall Street said these are companies in structural permanent decline, and it's weighing down your growth assets, so you need to get rid of them even though they still generate positive cash right now. And so, like, as you look at the big picture of Disney, can ESPN get out of this like circling of the drain that we've seen other companies go through and prove that as like a standalone entity that it's going to endure in this new fragmented world?
I'll say this. This isn't a useful sample size. This is just me. I pay for these things because of work and because I can write them off on my taxes. If I had some sort of different job, if I was a lawyer, whatever my different job, I don't think I would pay for it. I don't think I would pay for ESPN. I'd like to have it. I would like to have it, but I don't think I'd go out of my way to pay for it. And
So what bundle do you have? YouTube
I have
TV,
Hulu Sports.
Hulu
That's what
Sports.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
I-
you wouldn't buy that if you weren't for work? Because I mean, I'm a sicko, and if I was doing any other job, I would still be watching probably 80 to 90% as much sports.
Yeah, it's a good question. Would I find a rationalization for it that I needed it if I was a different person, if I hadn't been doing this for 15 years? Perhaps. If you really put it to me, I gave some tough talk. They might get it out of me. But I'm a man of a certain age. I don't know if the people younger than myself are so
All right, well,
inclined.
the people younger than us know how to pirate this stuff, either via parents' passwords or they're in like a group where like seven people, each one has one service and they share all of them, or they go to whatever website hasn't been a whack-a-mole shut down by Homeland Security this week and stream it there and click X on like seven different like porn
Yeah.
adjacent ads. But the people that are younger than us and even our age and a little bit older have gotten more adept at getting around paying for this bundle than I have had the energy to figure out.
Yeah. And I think that clearly informs their consumer choices. I'll read some of the scroll right here. Let me have this. Oh, is that my mic? Shoot. 1 second. Brilliantly done by me. Okay. Da, 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 da. Testing, testing.
I can hear you, but I can't
We
see.
can hear you, but your camera's off.
Oh my God. Okay, well, let's try to change that, folks.
There, you're
Okay.
back.
That was so smoothly done by me, where I tried to look at what you all said in the scroll, and I obviously unplugged something, and I apologize. But can you hear me crisply and clearly out there, folks?
Yes. Do we
Good.
want to take some questions now?
We do have people ask them. In the meantime, I want to see what they said about us. One second. Because Ray Marcano, one of my favorite question askers, said something about us being flummoxed and bewildered about the pendulum shift. Can't imagine the pendulum would swing this far as a common refrain, but the pendulum swings wildly all the time. We went from George Floyd to anti George Floyd in 5 years. Prior to that, the pendulum went from anti black to civil rights with money and apologies to make things seem right. Now to anti DEI. It always feels worse when I don't know how it continues, but I'll tell you, I didn't have that historical perspective that Ray had. I tend to think foolishly, Ryan, I tend to think things are just going to keep going the way they're going, and it's only going to be more so. I've got the gambler's fallacy. I don't know. In 2020, 2021, did you think, oh, it's really going to reverse? I didn't think anything like that.
No. I didn't. I bet on Kamala. I didn't think that Trump was going to be able to win again. And we talked about that at the time where I made that now foolish seeming bet. But uh I don't know. I don't know what the future is like. Like, let's say there is like some like like what if we're a nation under attack or something? Like we've been attacked twice. What if that happens again? How does the public react to it? Do they rally around the flag or do they blame the administration for being asleep at the wheel? There's
It
so many
depends on how
variables.
it depends on how many of them had betted on Polymarket for that to happen or not to happen, to
Yeah.
ground however they felt about it, not to be glib about a horrible thing. We've got Ray with his hand up, professional journalist. Let's see what he's got for us. Let's see what he wants to say. Let's get Ray to the stage.
God, I don't know that I need to be on the stage, but my only point was going to be that if you use history as a guide, history is really, really, really good at repeating itself. We go through process, we go through change, we go through upheaval, and when we live in it, it's always the worst that it ever is. But just go back and look at any issue that you want. I mean, let's talk about the ESPN and the NFL, right? That's supposed to be a massive, massive upheaval in broadcast. Well, go back and look at all the other massive upheavals in broadcast. When radio came back and came up in the 1920s and 30s, and then TV came, and it was supposed to take the place of everything. And then after that, cable came, and that was supposed to take the place of everything. So there's always something, and they are either A, only continued improvements on what we have, or B, people forgetting about history and then watching it repeat itself and going, oh my God, I didn't think that would ever happen. That makes sense?
It all makes sense. It all makes sense. It's just so subject, though, to personalities getting involved. And I think it just swings on these factors that I'm more of a great man theory of history person than whatever the opposite of that is that I can't recall to my head extemporaneously. Because I don't know if we're dealing with the vibe shift if Elon didn't decide to buy Twitter, for instance. And Elon's somebody who's risked his life in a variety of capacities. I even read about it in Nate Silver's book that he crashed some fancy car just driving insanely and how different the world would have been had that happened. And so I look at it, I go, yeah, maybe we would swing the other way from what was in vogue, but I'm cynical enough to think that so much of whatever our vibe is related to who is in control of the levers of social media. So I guess that's what I'm saying. I don't like, do you think that we would have swung back in this hypothetical if Elon had gotten in another car wreck?
I think that if it hadn't been Elon, it would have been somebody else.
I'm calling right now that we've already had peak social media. I know everything is supposed to get more social and more AI and more time in our screens, but I've been observing in recent weeks that a growing number of people, including young men, are reading physical books on public transportation rather than having their head in their phone like I always do.
Yeah. Well, let's get Ray out of here because he disagreed with me, and that's never allowed. That's not okay. So come on. I mean, what are we doing here? That's not cool. Of course, it's very cool. We enjoy robust disagreement. I don't know who's right about these hypotheticals. Yeah, to what you're saying, Ryan, there was a survey that came out today about how depressed and introverted social media has made everybody, and how the advent of social media has correlated with introversion, not just with young people who have it acutely, but in every demo across. Just this thing right here has just, I don't know, it's made us less cool, less outgoing. And I suppose it's not a law of physics that we have to be immersed in it in such a way. People can reject it and start reading books on the train or what have you.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. It's interesting because on social media you log in and it's doom and gloom and everything is terrible and our country's going to hell in a handbasket. Then you go walk outside, go to a ball game, go to a park, go to the beach, go to a nice restaurant. And I mean, maybe like that's selection bias because you're seeing the winners who have left their house and have the disposable income to entertain themselves outside of the house. But I'm seeing different world on my screen that I'm seeing in reality, and I've started to notice this for like 5+ years.
Yeah. And there's even positivity on social media too. It sort of depends on the rabbit hole. I saw something viral today about a British man. I think he might have been in Mississippi getting invited for the greatest day of his life by some dude on a boat to show him alligators and shooting and jumping off a rope into alligator infested waters and drinking and all of that. And it was about American openness. So that's my segue to get us back to the WNBA. You
Okay.
probably wouldn't think it would be.
No,
The
I didn't
WNBA,
see that one coming. You
well, because the
surprised me.
WNBA has been sort of typified by this doom and gloom, this negativity, this, oh my God, they're not paying us enough. The janitor makes more than I do, as Diana Taurasi said. But I was struck by this. You've identified this. Nobody wants to talk about this. Trace, can you pull up the clip that's been promoted by the WNBA of Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull doing a coordinated cowboy outfit tunnel walk? Can we see that? It's not what you associate. It's not your mother's WNBA there, Ryan. Now, I mean, this is a funny topic to me. Obviously, people have talked about or made reference to how Cunningham is attractive. There are nicknames for the Fever, Trace Leches. They're sort of doing a twinsies thing with them being blonde. But what I was kind of, I don't know, it was interesting to me about it is how unneurotic Sophie Cunningham's fame is. How she's a role player, but she seems very much at ease being this sort of celebrity, getting this sort of attention, and the lack of neuroticism to the whole thing and indulging in this aspect that the WNBA has found to be anathema, I find to be interesting, right? And I feel like nobody but us middle-aged dad sports media critics can even discuss it. Nobody wants to talk about it.
So
Maybe,
the first thing when I saw the tweet from the Indiana Fever account like about Sophie Cunningham in that outfit, I was like, is this the real Fever account or is this the horny parody Fever
yeah.
account that fetishizes Sophie Cunningham that I think like is like fooled me a couple times? And I'm like, wait a minute, is that a real account? No, it's fake. Okay, I get it.
Hmm.
But it's somehow getting served to me. But no, this was a real account that the Fever tweeted, and then that was your like that was a Tunnel Fits Instagram account. I don't know if that is affiliated with the WNBA or not, but it
Yeah.
is an Instagram account full of outfits that they wear in the tunnel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm following an account that's called Her Tunnel on Instagram seems dicey, just given what it's called. But you were saying, continue.
so the um you made me lose my train of thought.
Sorry
But
about that, buddy.
it's interesting that this started last year at the draft when Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and the rest of the 2024 WNBA draft class dressed elegantly in dresses and it was like it felt like a new way that the league was marketing itself consciously to embrace feminine and like just really highlight the looks of its players. And that wasn't something that they were doing before. I'm almost entirely positive, like because I think that we would have noticed it, and I think we only noticed it. It's not just because Clark came into the league and more people were paying attention. They made
Yeah.
a clear effort to change their branding, and so that is and that has been ongoing. Yes, Cameron Brink too. Chris M says in the comments she was involved in that draft last year where they were all wearing elegant dresses. And
Yes.
as far as Cunningham, it's interesting that you say that. I wonder now, look, she was she would go viral on social media, and I think people generally recognize that she is conventionally attractive before this season. But this year, she teamed up with Caitlin Clark. She had that moment where she bulldozed the opponent who had hit Clark hard earlier in the game. And also, this new huge tidal wave of attention on Sophie Cunningham is coming when she's 30. She's not one of these like child stars who
Mm,
has been inundated with attention since her mid to late teens. And I
yeah.
think that the way that people react to assuming fame, I think they can handle it better
So,
when
so
it
you're saying
happens like post like 26, 27.
this is the female version of John Hamm getting hired for Mad Men after waiting tables through his 30s, is what you are saying. That's a very interesting.
Well, she's a professional basketball player and she wasn't, plucked from obscurity, but there's a whole different level of fame that she has had in the last several months than what she was accustomed to before.
Yeah, and it seems like she's handling it well. A lot of young famous people, they crack, they get weird. She just seems to be along for the journey of it. And I think this is a weird thing to talk about, or a tough thing to talk about extemporaneously, Ryan, but not everything attractive is dirty and sordid. And I think people are attracted to a form of attractiveness that's not like that. And I think sometimes in women's sports, what people like and gravitate to or have gravitated to, it's healthy, seemingly well adjusted people who are attractive, they're athletes, who are achieving. And I think that that's just a vibe that people enjoy. And I think that's part of what has been resonant recently with the WNBA. It's just a tricky subject to discuss because there's no explicit selling of this. And yet it's part of the overall package and part of the overall way and reason the WNBA is managing to generate headlines every single week as the thing America cannot stop paying attention to, but won't necessarily sit down to watch.
And is it the green dodo thing, even this like as like annoyed as the stakeholders are by it. And I know Sophie Cunningham had kind of laughed it off a bit, but we had seen some like serious responses from Cheryl Reeve, the coach of the Minnesota Lynx, and just like the idea of players being exasperated by the play stoppages and the potential danger and how much attention this is
Yeah.
garnering. But it's probably not in the long run bad publicity. I don't know.
No, it's not. But the main problem with something like this and this other general trend I'm talking about where people exploit the amount of attention that one can do by doing the metaphorical taking a dump in church is that it exacts costs on other normal people. So perhaps this isn't the worst thing in the world. Perhaps it's a silly thing that has raised publicity, but it's going to lead to now when we go to any game, not just the WNBA game, but any game, more security,
This
more
is going to happen
restrictions.
in the NBA and MLB and stuff too. Like these copycats are going to. I'm surprised it hasn't happened in an MLB game yet, frankly, because this has
Yeah,
been happening, and the amount of people in the turnstiles of those games is substantial, way more than there's 30 teams instead of 12, and they're drawing 3 to 4 times as many people per game. So you would think by the math that the green dildo would attack the MLB by now.
You would think so. And I'm more on the side of this is bad, needs to be stamped out because of the cost that's going to exact on everybody else. But I feel like
How do they stop it though? Like, if somebody is going to like sneak one of these things in, I don't know how you stop it.
well, yeah, now that is a point that I don't want to think too deeply to use a word about. But
Maybe I mean
yes,
the way to stop it is by like the problem is it's jurisdiction by jurisdiction, but if there was very serious legal ramifications for it, then it might stop. But the deterrent seems like this doesn't seem like some type of thing. You're not going to spend like a year in jail for it, so I don't know how it's going to stop.
I don't. I'm picturing John Malkovich in that movie where he's trying to shoot the president and he's made his own contraption that's undetectable, made from plastic. You can't even detect it. Yeah, I mean, and also maybe if one of these people get caught, they're like the Zuckerberg scene in The Social Network, where they're saying, "Look, you're welcome. Something really dangerous could have happened, and I revealed that there were holes, as it were, to use another term, in your security. So you're welcome that it was for something so frivolous and not so dangerous and silly." But I do fear this behavior more generally, this gaming of the economy with the maladaptive. I don't like it, even though I shall say we have benefited, Ryan. It has been a fruitful topic for us, and we are part of the problem. I just
Uh,
observe that it is indeed a problem.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing though, is like can you ignore um any bad intention attention seeker? What would the news be if we could?
Yeah, I remember one of those two guys from PMT, from the Part of My Take crew, had a joke about it that the only way you can stop a bad guy with a dildo is a good guy with a dildo. That sort of thing. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm happy not to be engaged in arena security right now and having to fathom and think about these things. You wanted to talk about Micah Parsons. This is a topic that you've been grinding your gears about in secret with me. You've been texting me about it. You feel like there's something not being said about it in the media. They're not playing it square with us, Ryan. Let's talk about this. Jerry Jones, King Lear out in Dallas versus Micah Parsons, star pass rusher on his Dallas Cowboys, engaged in an ugly contract dispute with Parsons demanding a trade. It would appear, or he has said it wouldn't appear. I think it's just so. What's going on? Why is the media not playing straight with us, in your opinion?
So, like, it's now become that the media reflexively defends players in these contract and labor disputes, almost by a default.
Hmm.
And this is a time where I don't know that like the player is such a sympathetic case, or at least you can understand why the team is operating the way that it is. He signed for another year. That means that the Cowboys have effectively 3 seasons of club control because if he plays for this season and next year and then they franchise him, the franchise tag is like about what he's already making. And
Hmm.
so like what reason do the Cowboys have to guarantee him more money and more years when they have him for 3 years of club control on a big new contract that they already gave him and that he already agreed to? That's one. And number two, the I don't like how everyone at ESPN is just up in arms taking up Micah Parsons's case when it seems like the agency that represents Parsons has been in the ear of a lot of these people. And so, Athletes First, for people who don't know, is almost like the football version of Clutch. I know there is an actual football version of Clutch. They represent football players, but it's like Clutch in the way that they've got a big corner of these highly paid talents and they have influential agents who are on a walkie-talkie with some of the media members. And so, Athletes First has Tua, Dak, Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, Micah Parsons. You go on, they have a pretty
It's
high
like a
amount.
murderer's row of good players who disappoint in the playoffs. I'm sorry, but sorry to mention your Packers and all of that. Love had
I
one
mean,
good playoff
Love,
game.
the jury's out on Love.
I know.
But but he is, he's making $55 million a year now, and he has not proven he's worth that. That is a contract based on what he could accomplish, not on what he has. So that's a fair point. Um, and so, I mean, there are some people in the media that Athletes First has done their deal with ESPN, and they're out here defending Micah Parsons, like up in arms about it, yelling at Jerry Jones, and there's no disclosure that they're represented by the same person. And so
Mm.
it's just like a bizarre scene where I don't think that the public necessarily realizes that this agency that represents Parsons has become such a juggernaut relatively quickly over the last several years.
Yeah, you said a lot there. In a way, I feel a little bit in disagreement. Maybe in agreement with Chris M., who is saying that Parsons is still on his rookie deal, so he has never been able to negotiate what his fair market value is. He would appear to have been underpaid. I think being in the 20 million range as he is this season, not at the level of what he would get on the open market, certainly. But at the same time, I do think has disappointed in the playoffs. From a 49ers perspective, whenever the 49ers play the Cowboys, it's I don't even notice him. Is he doing anything? That's been the experience again and again. Playoff performance so much worse than regular season impact. But then from his perspective, that's an injury riddled kind of job. So I get it, but
Well, that's also the team's perspective. I mean, he missed a bunch of games last year, so why are they trying to guarantee him 4 years in the future?
yeah, I wouldn't love it. If I was a Cowboys fan, they signed him for a big deal. It wouldn't feel like signing, I don't know, a steady offensive tackle or quarterback. I would feel like we already got the best years of Micah Parsons. We just paid for the best years of Micah Parsons right as they ended. Could be wrong about it, but that's what I would think. That's what I would assume. And I think that's probably what Jerry Jones thinks, even if he's
Well,
mispronouncing
I
his
think
name.
what Jerry is saying is like he negotiated with Parsons directly, and he thought that they had a handshake deal, and then Parsons went back to the agent, and the agent's like, "No, this is a bad deal. We're not doing it." And so that's kind of what Jerry's coming from a place of we had a deal, and now they're going back on their word. And Parsons is saying, well, no, we can't make a deal without my agent involved, even though Jerry thinks
Yeah.
he did. So,
And who
back and forth and back and forth on that. I if I was a player, I wouldn't enter into those types of
yeah.
negotiations without an agent.
Okay. So I think there's a fair Micah Parsons case to be made that he has been underpaid and should not continue to be underpaid. But where I do find agreement with you, spiritual agreement with you, is more where's the voice saying the counter argument? Why, when I turn on ESPN, all these other channels, are people shrieking at me about how unfair this is to Micah Parsons? There is a fair counter argument to where the hell's he been in the playoffs? This team's losing. Was he part of the losing? They're not doing great. He doesn't seem integral to their success if they're not having success. That's at least a fair counter argument to say if you want to get paid that kind of money, then when the lights were brightest, why were you at your worst? Why were you a non-factor? I think that's completely fair. I don't know where I land on it. I'm not a football expert, but there's something a little too player tilted in the NBA and in the NFL. Some might have accused it of being a wokeness thing or whatever, maybe a component, but I think the main component is what you mentioned, which is this secret corruption of the process where there are shared agents and agencies between media and players. And also media wants to break stories first on Twitter X. And the way to do that is to placate agents. And none of this is being explained to the viewer.
Yeah. I mean, you've explained it before, but it's not getting explained on but although I think the people are onto it with Clutch and the NBA. And like for whatever reason, the NBA fan base knows, oh, that person is just like a Clutch merchant or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
And you don't see that
somebody
in
made people
football.
aware of that. Somebody out there created that trend, I would say, Ryan. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little too grandiose, but I feel like this particular aspect of the game wasn't being talked about before, but now
And
people are
people
getting
in
wise to it.
MLB, like when a Boris guy is getting touted by the media, the fans are saying, "Oh, you're just taking up for Boris," but you don't see that in the NFL with like some of the several power agents that there are. For whatever reason, the fan base hasn't caught on to that game in football as much as in basketball and baseball.
Yeah, and it's fair. Again, it's fair. There's a fair perspective. It's just weird when everybody arrives at one fair perspective and nobody arrives at the other fair perspective. But some of that just might have to do with Jerry Jones seeming to melt in front of everybody and just just the regular Joe Bidenification we're being treated to at all levels of industry as people age while being fully clothed in power. And there's a sense of that, and that might be informing some of the response and backlash.
Yeah, I think that that's probably true. I mean, he is you watch him talk and you're like, you're not as sharp as you were 10 years ago. At least not in terms of like this physical magnetism that you once possessed. But, he is still up there doing it in his 80s. And you got to like this is different than being like the president, because like if you're a sports owner, you should grasp this until your last breath.
Okay, we can take a couple questions if anybody has questions. If anybody doesn't, I think I can try to come up with a Mount Rushmore of people undergoing Joe Bidenification right now, as mean-spirited as that might seem. I think Jerry Jones would have to be on the mountain currently on Biden watch. Greg Popovich still as president of the San Antonio Spurs. I know that he took a step back from that. That's a whole topic that I've written about and talked about, which is that Clutch is actually doing the clutch thing in the NBA, for instance, Ryan. I don't know. Is there anybody else? I just named this as a trend, as a
uh,
boomer trend
uh,
out there.
Let me
Yeah,
think. There's gotta be somebody that I'm
yeah,
gonna
there's got to
say.
be somebody. We'll think about it. We'll
I'm
think
gonna It's
about it.
gonna come to me after we go off air, and I'm like,
No,
ah.
it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Aaron
Aaron
Rodgers. What a suggestion.
I don't know. The people who are watching Steel, look, he's gonna get demolished on some hit this year.
Oh,
But
Belichick. Great. Great.
oh yeah, Belichick's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if we're doing a sports centric one. Yeah, Belichick. It's amazing how much damage you can do to your legacy nowadays. It really seems unfair, but I think
Well,
he's
it's because people weren't coaching into their mid 70s until now.
yeah.
And there's rumors that like Nick Saban is gonna come back, and he's like
Yeah.
basically as old
You
as Belichick.
you hit the shot in Utah. You hit the 1998 shot, Nick Saban. Like you did it. You had a good sense about it. And now we're seeing Nick Saban talking about how Miss Terry's making him vacuum and he can't do it anymore. And now he's got the itch to coach again. And I'm just going, please, you already
You're
embodied the
already the
dignity
greatest
we want.
ever.
Yeah. You know,
You won.
I don't care about college football, but I care about dignified exits for our elders and a natural passing of the torch as should happen. And
And
when I
also
saw,
like
yeah,
I don't want to be working in like my late 70s. I want to be hanging out with my grandkids, hopefully in some measure of health, and like drinking like alcohol out of a coconut.
yeah, I mean, that sounds rather appealing. I don't really have a plan to ever retire, which I said to somebody, I said to my brother-in-law, and he said, well, that's because you like your job. And then I realized that that's actually rare, that most people don't like their jobs. And so let's just try to keep it fun, keep me liking my job. I think we're starting to come to the finish line here. Oh, Chris M says Saban can pay for the hired vacuum cleaner, and the person that they sub that work out to might be an excuse. I don't want to call Nick Saban a liar. I don't want to call him a liar, but I don't. Yeah, that's not the most compelling reason. He might be playing a persona. This idea that Miss Terry is controlling him. I think he plays that one for laughs. I think he just has the itch to do what he has always done, Ryan. So as we reach the finish line in this, I always give my guests an opportunity to plug what they are doing. You're always doing
I have
amazing
a
work.
good
You're
plug.
breaking stories. Okay, let's hear the plug. Plug away, plug.
FOS tuned in. September 16th, New York City. We've got Adam Silver, Rob Manfred, Jimmy Pitaro, Eric Shanks, Jay Marine, Maria Taylor. It's a star-studded lineup.
Oh my
If you
God. Is
use
this gonna
code,
change you? I'm sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt your plug. Are you gonna become captured? Are you gonna be
I
as sharply
well,
critical?
I'm not I don't have one of the commissioners, so
Okay.
you can rest easy there. But I don't know if I'm allowed to say who I'm interviewing yet. But it is gonna be like Rick Cordella, head of NBC. There is gonna be several commissioners, several network heads, several big star talents, still some more to be named. If you use code FOS Ryan, if you go find the event page, you get $100 off. So, um, I think it's going to be one of the best, most interesting sports media events out there. Maybe the best, the most interesting, if I'm going to use Ethan's way of touting me to tout my
Mm,
company. So,
goat.
we would love if anybody is interested in this stuff and wants to come out to that in New York, September 16th.
I just hope Adam Silver has a confrontation with you. That's what I want to
I
happen.
don't think so. Uh,
Brian, I heard your podcast with Ethan Strauss.
he is a House of Strauss subscriber. Now that you've been dropping my private,
I don't know. That's not confirmed or denied. I don't know about that. I haven't checked. I don't know. I don't know.
might have
But
left. Okay. He at
yeah.
least at one point was a paid
And it's not
subscriber.
that. It's that I can't reveal who's subscribed. I need to give some confidentiality to anybody who'd subscribe to a rag as disreputable as House of Strauss. It's not like you think
Well, I thought I
Larry
was
Flynn
getting
could have made a
anonymity
buck.
saying Hollywood Reporter used a better photo of Gina Carano in victory than defeat.
I'm sorry. Well, I guess you got me after I got you. Good plug. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Great stuff as always, Ryan. Good job
Good
by
job on
you.
you.
Show over.